Right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Wright Virtual Visits for May 2023. Um, my name is Eric Rogers. I'm the manager of events and communications for the Frank Lloyd Wright Building Conservancy. I'm coming to you from our offices in the historic Monadnock building in downtown Chicago, where we are having a beautiful spring day finally. I want to go into a couple of housekeeping notes. Of course, thanks to everyone who's tuning in live on Facebook. We're glad you're watching. Many of you have seen perhaps even all of the Wright virtual visits that we've done. But for anyone who's new this month, of course, you know that you are welcome to drop comments or questions in the comments on the video at any time, and I will be monitoring those. I may respond to them directly in the comments, or we will have some time for Q&A towards the end of the episode where we will talk about some of your questions with our guest. Of course, feel free to also sound off and just let us know where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. I do want to make a note of thanks, as always. It takes a lot of work to put these Wright virtual visits together every month. And my collaborator on this project is Anna Kaplan, the executive director of the Graycliff Conservancy. And then I also want to shout out Forever Ready Productions and Allison and her whole crew there. They make it possible for us to do this month after month and look more or less like we know what we're doing. So thank you so much to Forever Ready as well. So with that, let's go ahead and get into what we're here to talk about. So this is kind of a fun episode because our guest is actually Anna Kaplan from Graycliff, and she is going to be going into a couple of recent additions to Graycliff's let's call them seating options. How are you doing, Anna?
I'm doing well. Thank you, Eric, for that introduction. I'm really excited today to be in this seat. A little bit of a different perspective here and lots to share with you about Graycliff. So first, I wanted to orient you to the format today. I am not live from Derby, New York. I'm actually at my home in Buffalo. And the reason being is that technology is a challenge out there. You'll see that we are on the top of a 65-foot cliff and on a body of water that's Lake Erie. And just across that body of water is Canada. And so cell phone reception is very tricky. My phone is constantly telling me I'm in Canada. When I'm not, it switches over to that network, and we do not yet have a strong internet signal in the historic houses. It's proven to be a project that is more challenging than expected. So I'm here today. I'm going to be sharing with you images as well as some pre-recorded video. And what I personally love about this format is that it allows me to, kind of hop through time. I'm going to share with you our restoration journey and on this specific piece of the property. And I'm excited with, using this format. I think it's going to work really well. So thank you all for tuning in. And Allison, why don't you put the PowerPoint up in the, thank you. So this is Graycliff. As I mentioned, we're in Derby, New York, and that's about 20 minutes from downtown Buffalo. We're on Lake Erie. We're also about 20 miles from the Martin House, which is Darwin and Isabel Martin's city home. We were designed by Frank Lloyd Wright in 1926. That's about 20 years after the Barton House and the Martin House. And we were designed as their summer home. So you can see it's very picturesque out here on Lake Erie, and the lake is really an integral piece to Wright's design. I wanted to include this little map because not only are we, very close to the Martin House, it takes about 30 minutes by car. And we definitely consider the Martin House a sister site. We have this incredible shared history, and we really encourage you to visit both sites. We actually have a new joint tour effort that's now running monthly. It's called the Martin House Graycliff Experience, where you can take a 2-hour tour of both sites in the same afternoon, and there's a boxed lunch that's included. So that's a really wonderful option that we now have available. And if you're in the area and you have a car, there's these other sites that are worth visiting, and you can see that we are very close to our Pennsylvania neighbors: Fallingwater, Polymath Park, Kentuck Knob. From Graycliff, it takes about 4.5 hours or so to get there, and the Hagen History Center in Erie is the perfect stop around along the way. So today I'm going to be talking about 2 Frank Lloyd Wright designed seating opportunities that have been, one has been recently restored and the other has recently returned home. The first is this exterior bench that Wright designed, and this is on a portion of the property that we refer to, well, actually, Wright referred to as the Esplanade. It's the lake side of the property. And this was designed, as I mentioned, as the Martins' summer home. And they actively used it, and they appreciated it for its beach access. A lot has happened over the decades in terms of erosion, and there's not much of a beach anymore. But when the Martin family lived here, summered here, there was a pretty lovely beach, and there existed a stair tower because, again, we're on the 65-foot cliff down to that beach. This area of the Esplanade is very special. Wright had originally specced out some sort of water feature here. He was really interested, as I mentioned, in the lake as this important natural feature, and everything that he's doing with this main house is framing that incredible landscape. And I'm going to just go back to this first slide. There's a pond in the front of the house, and that is really important for the design because conceptually it links that small body of water with the larger body of water beyond the house. It's almost as if conceptually the water is flowing through, and this water feature on that lake side of the property, the Esplanade, that never came to be, would have continued that and really underscored it. Isabel, who was identified by Darwin, her husband, Darwin Martin, as the client of prominence on this project. You know, this was meant to be a gift from Darwin to Isabel. This was meant to be Isabel's summer retreat. Isabel wasn't interested in the water feature, so it didn't come to be. But what this area is it's hard to get a sense of it, but when we get into the video, you'll see that it's a bit sunken, and the reason being is, and here's what it used to look like. Isabel did not want the view to be disturbed by people walking past it to that bridge to the stair tower, which you can see here. And this is an image of a model that we have in our visitor center. And this gives you a really good sense of what this part of the property used to look like. We've estimated that we've lost anywhere between 10 and 15 feet of the cliff due to erosion. And you'll see that the piece of the cliff, obviously, that we've lost included this Wright design stone bench. And what we were left with were the remnants. And I'll point that out to you a little bit later. But here you could see what was there when it was fully intact. There's this path that is behind the bench, and it dips down so that the top of that bench would be just about head level. And that would allow the Martin family and guests to access this bridge and stair tower down to the beach. This is also, this is a historic image that shows you that area behind the bench. And it also gives you a good sense of that original fence, which was also part of this restoration effort. So one of the big decisions that had to be made was whether or not to reinstall this bench. Um, as I mentioned, we've lost so much cliff that it could never be what it once was exactly. And it had to be recited because we don't have that cliff. Here's some other images of this area called the Esplanade and that original bench. I'm so happy that our board and leadership, well before me, had made this decision to restore this bench, because being in the space, what it really does is it defines a space as an exterior room, essentially. So, um, just going back a few to this is what the property used to look like. And for those of you that have visited before, this is what it's been like since the Graycliff Conservancy, acquired the property. So the first step in the process involved reclaiming the stone materials, because we were really interested in having as much original stone as possible in this recreated bench. And I should mention that the top layer of our cliff is Tichenor limestone, and Wright used that rock directly from our site throughout, including in this bench and in elements of the architecture on the main house and the second structure on the property. So this was taken just about a year ago, and so it was a intense process. Not only did this effort involve the bench itself and the fence, as I mentioned, but it also involved drainage, which is really necessary in order to try to continue to do everything we can to mitigate the effects of erosion. And so this redirects the water so that it's not from rain, so that it's not going over the cliff. I should mention that this was an effort that was funded by New York State. This is the last piece of an extensive restoration effort, and it was slightly stalled due to COVID. So the base of the bench itself is concrete, and then it was covered in the stone. Allison, could you take the PowerPoint down, please? Okay, we're gonna go into this first video that I've created for you just the other day. So this is what the property is looking like these days. We're walking along the side of the house and we're going back to the Esplanade. And you can see there's a sunken garden that we're walking by right here. And it's too early in the season yet, but later on it will be filled with flowers and really gorgeous. And it was such a beautiful day when I filmed this. The lake is incredible. It's never boring. And now this view is so much better than what it was before. We actually removed a few trees during this process to open up that view and really get back to, what Wright had intended in terms of, framing the landscape. And here you get a really good sense of that dip, and also how Wright is architecturally framing this exterior space. So it's almost like an exterior room. And already it's been used during our programming. Visitors can enjoy it when they're at our market or on a self-guided tour. And I'm just going to turn around and show you the Esplanade from another angle. Also, when you're inside the living room, the view of the bench and the lake is absolutely wonderful. And here you can see that Tichenor limestone that's used on the main house. All right, let's go on to that second video, Allison, if you don't mind. So this one, I'm walking into the main house. I'm going to go up these stairs and get to the terrace that's on the second floor. And this will allow us to see where the old bench used to be and the remnants that we are left with. We're walking by our iconic diamond window that's at the top of the stairs and into this beautiful hallway. It's one of my favorite parts of the whole property. And we're gonna go through the guest room out onto this balcony. And when we get out there, you can see that the floors of the duckboard, it was recently repaired by my caretaker, and he has yet to put the sealant on it that makes it blend in a little more. So that's why there's that striping. So here you can see the esplanade from above, and just beyond the esplanade, you can see those original bench remnants. So you could get a good sense of where that bench actually was. We wanted to keep those for a few different reasons. Firstly, we did not want to disrupt the cliff any more than we were already. So the contractors very carefully excavated the rock without disturbing that foundation. We also wanted to keep the remnants there as an interpretive piece. We want our docents to be able to point to those and say, this is where the bench was originally, and allow people to be able to imagine that and better access Wright's original intention for that space. And I do have one more video. So this is a close-up. 80% of the rock used in this bench is original. The masonry is fresh. It's only a year or so old. It will eventually look weathered and more like the stonework on the sides of the esplanade. And this is a close-up of those bench remnants. So what the architects told us is that where this bench is now sited allows for about 50 years. They originally wanted us to be planning on 100 years, and we felt that that was too dramatic in terms of the shortening of the esplanade and the move away from the original siting of that bench and the original intentions of Wright. So this is a 50-year plan. We will be focusing on everything that we can do to help to mitigate the erosion factor, but a lot of it is out of our control. Okay, Allison, let's go back to the PowerPoint. So as Eric alluded to, and I should get an image up here. Okay. I also am sharing with you this second seating opportunity. Again, this is a new, it's news for us at Graycliff. And for those of you that have visited before, both of these are excellent opportunities to please come back and visit us again. In August 1929, and this is after the Martins were there for their very first summer in 1928, Isabel wrote to Wright, and she said, quote, "Will you please send me at once a sketch for a hall seat about 6 feet long and 23 inches deep overall? This I wish of the simplest possible design to be made of cypress with loose cushions back and seat. Comfort is not first requisite, as it is simply to fill space between lavatory door and south window, which was originally intended for mirror and table. One stroke of your pencil will do the job. So may I look for design by return mail? My humble suggestion would be spindle under and back." And Wright ended up replying just a few days later, actually, about a week later, with this sketch that is now in the collection of the Avery Library at Cornell. And so we knew that this bench existed, and actually, the bench was seen at Graycliff by a founding member of the Conservancy before Graycliff Conservancy existed and took ownership. But it was seen at Graycliff in the late 1970s and early 1980s when the second owners of the property, a group of Pierce fathers, lived there. And uh, it was sold at some point, and we lost track of it, but we were able to create a replica. And the replica was made from those from that original sketch. We were notified this past December that this bench was up for auction. This was a really special uh, opportunity. It's rare that these pieces associated with Graycliff come up for auction. It's exceedingly rare. It's actually very rare that Wright was designing furniture at all during this time. You know, Graycliff was designed in 1926. It was a period of time where little was going on professionally for Wright, and we think he designed about 30 pieces for Graycliff. Isabel Martin wasn't interested in having a second home that was complete with Wright design furniture. She was interested in a mixture of Wright pieces along with wicker and upholstered pieces that Wright actually helped her to choose. So what ended up resulting from that is that he designed this bench, he designed radiator covers, he designed small octagonal tables and plant stands. And it was, I actually will be showing you some historic images of what it looked like in there. So, December, we were notified that this bench was up for sale in Chicago, and we knew that it belonged to Graycliff. So this very generous group of donors came together and made this possible for our organization. They include two founding board members, the gentlemen who are behind the bench, Patrick Mahoney and Joseph Blatz. Patrick was the one that knew about this bench, had seen it in person. He actually had measured it at one point, and he facilitated the creation of the replica. And both Patrick and Joe, knew how special this opportunity was, having been around, involved again with founding the organization in the late 1990s, and they knew how rare this opportunity was. And then we have two current board members, Phyllis Spears and Cynthia Silverstein, who came together and really pushed this forward and made this a feasible reality for us. And we were able to acquire this bench and bring it home. So this is something that you can now see on a tour of Graycliff. These are some images of what that living room area looks like. We currently have this bench on view in the living room, and the reason being is that we know it was designed for the foyer. But as I mentioned, we have this amazing replica, and we wouldn't want to put this precious piece of furniture in that highly trafficked area. So we have it on display in the living room. We know that there was an upholstered love seat that you can see over here to the right. But again, it's mixed with the pieces of wicker, and you can see some other Wright design pieces. There's this small table right here, and the plant stand are Wright designed, as well as this corner of the bookcase too. Here's some other images just to give you a sense of what it looked like when the Martins lived there. And I should mention that that is our mission. Our goal and vision for the interiors is to replicate the Martins experience in the early 1930s. And so this is the living room today. The interiors have now all been fully restored. 2019 was the first season that we opened fully restored and furnished. And the furnishings are still a bit of a work in progress. We're always trying to improve them as pieces become available, as funds become available. But we are really excited to have this original piece of furniture, and it's right over here. And here's another view. You get a little bit of a sense how Wright was so thoughtful in his design, not only for, this individual piece of furniture, but the other pieces and how they all interact together. So there's this very specific geometry that's happening here, and you get a good sense of that when this bench joins the other pieces in the room. All right, Allison, you can remove that. And we can bring Eric back now for see if we've have any questions from.
Right. Well, thank you for sharing these new images. We were the Frank Lloyd Wright Building Conservancy Conference in 2021. Had the pleasure of visiting Graycliff before either of these benches were in place. And I know we've been hearing about the cliff stabilization and the restoration back there, but to really see it come to fruition is very satisfying. And I definitely just want to say the experience of standing in that living room and facing that wall of windows, looking down the esplanade, and then seeing Lake Erie beyond that. I mean, it's such an incredible vista that, none of these, as great as the videos were, and you did a fantastic job on them, Anna, there's no substitute for being there in person, and just seeing how Wright plays with the light and the space and the glazing, opening that up to the lake.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Eric. I completely agree.
Yeah, people should definitely visit, especially if they have never been. But even if you haven't been in a few years, I think the way that project kind of tidied up that ragged edge of the cliff and terminated it with, the kind of vista that Wright wanted, even if it's not in exactly the same place, I think is really great. So yeah, I do want to just remind people, if anything Anna said spurred any comments or questions, please drop them in the comments and I'll ask them. But I've got a few questions of my own. So I think and you addressed this a little bit head on when you said that the Esplanade and bench restoration has a 50-year outlook. What happens in 100 years? Like what is, I assume that there are projections about what is happening with that cliff edge and, what can be done. That's kind of terrifying.
It's definitely on our minds. And I don't have an answer, but it's going to take some serious research. We do have a LiDAR scan that happened several years ago, and we're going to be making plans to do another LiDAR scan so we can essentially compare that data and understand exactly what the rate of erosion is. And then hopefully we can take some steps to mitigate it. I mean, the drainage was an important piece of that. That wasn't a fun project, as you can see it. We had to completely tear up that piece of the property. But it's very necessary. And there's just that, there's a lot of weather activity out there. And there's a lot that's out of our control, but our hope is that, we know that we're not the only ones that are dealing with this issue. And so our hope is that, we can have a creative solution at some point down the road.
Well, and we do have a question that came in. Did the original bench and the stair tower actually just fall into the lake due to erosion?
That's a great question. No, the bridge was still intact when the Graycliff Conservancy took ownership in the late 1990s, and I believe it was removed. I want to say sometime maybe around 2015. It was there for quite a while. It wasn't being used, but it was still there. It did not just fall. So it was removed. The stair tower was there until last summer. It was designed from a kit made by Bethlehem Steel, which is was a local manufacturer of steel. And Wright definitely wanted to design steps down to the beach. And his plan was to put those steps actually in the cliff. And, that would have been gone a very long time ago if that was, if that came to be. It just wasn't financially feasible. Darwin Martin went and he bought this kit, for a stair tower that existed, out of a catalog, I'm sure, and, had it erected. And actually, the story is that he kind of put it on the wrong side, which was, again, one of the reasons why Isabel wanted that area to be sunken so that when people were walking across, it didn't disrupt her view. But this stair tower was removed last summer as part of this project. It was a liability for us. It was deemed unsafe, yet people would kayak up to it and climb it. So I feel a lot better now that it's not there. And we still tell the story through images and interpretive materials, but it wasn't right designed, and it's safer now that it's been removed.
You showed us some great historic images of the esplanade and the bench. Are there images looking the other way, like from out on the lake, that show the cliff with the stair tower? And
That's a really great question, Eric. And the answer is no. I wish there were. But that question brings up the point of that was something that we can't replicate right now, except through drone images, which is really important. But because that was part of what Wright was thinking, he was definitely conscious of that view, and that view of the house and the cliff together. And users of that bridge would have seen that. They would have experienced that with 10 to 15 more feet of cliff there.
well, I think it's such an interesting challenge to have to reckon with when you're responsible for a historic home, but you have to worry about this cliff that is.
I mean, it definitely is what makes the site so special. Graycliff is a really excellent example of, Wright's evolving concept of organic architecture, and it really could not exist anywhere else. It's the cliff, the lake, as I mentioned, it's so integral to his design. And when you're out there, you really get a sense of, what he was trying to achieve.
Yeah.
But it definitely comes with, yes, some major logistical challenges and concerns that I'm sure we'll be continuing to discuss. But you mentioned how now the lakeside is tidied up. When you were there, we still have that fence that was compromised in several places, and we actually had this kind of makeshift rope fence just to stop people from getting too close, because this fence was right on the edge. Now we have a much not only more historically accurate but safer fence situation back there, and this allows us to offer more programming opportunities. So we have a really exciting event happening in June. It's a summer solstice garden party, and we will be welcoming people to the property in the evening for this really fun party that involves music, and Buffalo aerial dance will be there. It's a fundraiser for us. Wright actually is said to have designed a specific window in the house, a corner window in what we call the view room, to perfectly frame the setting sun around the summer solstice. So we're really celebrating that this year and bringing people to the property during that time. So it's really exciting.
And you're able to kind of host the party in that esplanade area now that
Exactly.
you've got, yeah. We had one more question, and we'll have to wrap up here in a minute. But the fact that the bench at the far end of the esplanade faces the house and not the lake, can you comment on that? Was that an intentional choice that Wright made because he wanted people to appreciate his design of the house?
Well, I think what it does, when you're in that space, what it does is it invites you to be in that area that he has defined. Again, as this sort of exterior room. And yes, it does communicate back to the house. But that's a really interesting question. But as you saw in those historic photos, there's people sitting on top of it, standing on it. It invites you to sit in several different ways. So I think he was probably quite aware of that as well.
Well, if people want to plan their own visit, or if they want to come to the Solstice Garden Party, what do they need to know? How can they learn more?
You can find all the information about our tour program, as well as the Summer Solstice Garden Party and other associated solstice programming at our website. It's experiencegraycliff.org. And I really hope that you do make the trip to Graycliff. And again, remember that we're in close proximity to those other Wright sites. And I encourage you to seek them out as well.
Yeah, we visited all of those Buffalo area sites during our 2021 conference, and it's a great tour itinerary. So highly recommend that. Well, I think with that, we'll start to wrap up. But I really appreciate the videos that you put together, Anna. I think, as you mentioned at the very beginning, it's been a little difficult to interpret Graycliff within the framework of Wright virtual visits because you can't go live on the property reliably. So with a little bit of planning ahead of time and cooperative weather, we had those beautiful pre-recorded videos that I think really showed that space. So thank you for that. And thanks to everyone who has been watching live and to Allison behind the scenes. Just a couple of announcements to wrap up with. Of course, if you have missed past episodes of Wright Virtual Visits and would like to catch up and view the archives, you can do that at savewright.org/WVV. You'll find all of our past videos, and we've been doing this for several years now, as hard as that is to believe. So you can spend quite a bit of time watching these videos. We do invite you to put on your calendars for June 15th will be our next Wright Virtual Visits, and we'll be going to Falling Water. So we're really excited to see what we will get to check out there. But we hope that you'll join us for that. Here at the Frank Lloyd Wright Building Conservancy, we've got a couple of things coming up that might be of interest. Next Tuesday night, we have an online talk about the restoration work that's happened at Samara, which is the John E. Christian House in West Lafayette, Indiana. And that's an online event that you can still register for on our website, savewright.org. We are also going to be opening registration for our annual conference in a couple of weeks, and that conference will be in late September in Minneapolis, Minnesota. So I encourage you to check out our website at savewright.org to learn more about those events as well. And I think with that, we are ready to sign off. So thank you, Anna and Allison behind the scenes, and thanks everyone for tuning in.
Thanks, Eric.
Bye.